All
Yeah,
right,
we can
okay.
hear.
So I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar session today. So as you know, when you signed up, it's all about transitioning to the modern world, professional world. So it's all for undergraduate as well as fresh graduates. So you might be like students who continuing your studies or maybe planning on starting into the workforce soon, but might be confused. Okay, what's going to be my next step? You might not know. Okay, once I'm done with my degree, once I graduate with my degree, what's the next step I should take? Like, how do I like navigate the corporate world? So worry not, we have Mr. Chamaka Ranasinghe, our guest speaker here. So he is like a distinguished lecturer, uh, our very own from the Kensley lecture panel. He also holds a bachelor's in computer science as well as statistics and a master's, the MBA from the UK, and also holds a postgraduate diploma in marketing. So he's gonna like walk you through on how to navigate all of these hurdles that you might come across on your corporate journey. So yeah, Mr. Chamaka.
Thank you, Alida. Thank you very much. Right. So, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome all of you to this session. And thank you very much for the flattering introduction, as always, Alida. And I think the objective is clear for all of us here today, who are gathering around this particular session, which is organized just for you by Kensley Graduate School, for a specific audience today. So that is mainly for the undergraduates who are the ones who are still doing your degree program, and also the individuals who have just finished off your degree program as well. So our objective here today in this session is to ensure that we provide you with the right input in order to make sure that you guys get the right equipment that you can use when you go into your next phase in life, right? So currently, the idea here is that the majority of you guys uh, are doing your degree program, so just finished off, and then you guys are looking forward to the next phase, which is going into the corporate world, or maybe starting off your own entrepreneurial journey, right? So either way, you guys are taking a step forward. Right? So you guys are kind of like transitioning from the mindset of learning into the mindset of contributing. So today's session is all about helping you with that, assisting you with that, and sharing with you some practical knowledge that we ourselves have kind of like encountered when we were taking that leap, right? So it is not just another session where we talk a lot about the specifics of what you learn and how you learn and all that, right? But it will be more or less a session where we would interact with each other and where we would kind of like share some knowledge that we have gained over the years working for a few organizations as of now, right? So that's the idea. And all of us are now clear as to what we are getting into right now and what we are kind of like trying to explore for the next 1 hour or so. All right. So just a little bit about myself, the one who will be speaking to you guys. I would expect all of you guys to kind of like contribute a little bit as well, but overall, just for you guys know as to whom you guys are listening to today, right? So just like Adra mentioned, I am a lecturer in multiple subjects, right? Mainly in OTHM as well as in CIMA, and also in BTech HND, as well as been having several engagements with multiple institutions, and I'm currently a lecturer at Kensley Graduate School as well. And then in terms of my corporate journey, I have been an IT professional for the past number of years, mainly specializing in product. So currently my engagement is also in relation to product management in IT, and have held positions in relation to operations as well as project management, mainly when it comes to the digital space of things, right? So just before we get started, there is a little bit about myself and what I have done. And believe Adila has already mentioned about a little bit about my education background as well. So nothing different from you guys. I've been a person who has been in your position a few years back as well. And have been able to navigate through and been able to be engaged with a few companies, which has given me this invaluable experience, which I will be sharing with you guys today so that you can take a little bit out of that to kind of like help out with whatever that you're going to do with your future as well. That's all that matters. All right. So now I told you all that this is going to be a bit of a practical session. This is going to be a bit of a session where we are going to talk about not just direct theory, but we are going to talk about things that relates to all of us in a day-to-day scenario, right? So one question, right? So as a lecturer, as well as a person who kind of like interact with a lot of young individuals, one question that I always ask people is that what are you going to do as your next step in your career, or what are you going to do next, right? So even when I kind of like get individuals to interview, this is one question that I always tend to ask, right? And this is a very popular question where most individuals sometimes does not have a clear answer to, right? Sometimes. Most of y'all have an answer, right? Sometimes you are not very clear. Sometimes it's a maybe answer, right? Sometimes it's like an on the fence answer, right? So we are in different mindsets. So when we were like you guys as well, at a certain junctures, we had the same problem. That truth be told, right? So because I mean, in life, one thing that we need to understand is that we don't always have everything figured out from the get-go. Like probably that might be the case when it comes to your education qualification. Everything is written down, right? So there's a structure that you need to follow as long as you submit all your assignments and as long as you do your paper, as long as you kind of like um uh, uh, face the exam successfully, you will be getting an A, right? But when you transition into life, right, so the whole objective of this session is that although you have submitted all your assignments on time in life, and you have passed all your exams, which comes as challenges in life quite successfully, right? So regardless of you have done all of these things according to a plan, sometimes you might not always get an A in life, right? So that's the reality in life, right? So if I ask you this question from all of you right now, right? What are you going to do, right? So this can be your career, right? So this can be your future, right? So if I ask you this question, you can respond to this question in the chat box, right? What are you going to do in your future? I'll give you a few minutes. You can let me know, right, in the chat. You can post it up publicly, right? Or you can just send it out to me as a direct message as well. What are you going to do? General question. What is your plan, right? Find employment. All right. What else? Anyone else who would want to respond? Find a job. Okay. Right. How about the others? What are your next steps? Right. So you guys, we assume that you guys are individuals who are doing your degree programs, right? So some of you familiar faces are like that, right? How about the others, right? So you guys might be individuals who just passed out from university as well, right? So what is your next step? What are you planning on doing? as the next step in your life after the degree program? Right? Few have answered. I'm waiting for the others as well. Right? So we have around around few students who are here with us. Right? There's definitely more than two. So how about you guys? Okay. One thing coming up is that migrating for higher study. All right. Okay. Get a job. Okay. How about the others? Planning to migrate, focusing on career development with pursuing to complete the MBA. All right. Great. So I think we have a number of responses, right? So different individuals planning on taking different pathways, right? So basically, the idea here is that at this juncture, right? So when you guys are around 20 to 25, this is a phase in life, right? Where some of you all may have kind of like directly kind of like ironed out and have a step-by-step plan as to this is what I'm going to do, and these are the steps that I'm going to follow in the next phase of my career, right? Some of you all may have already started that, right? And some of you all kind of like are being successful with that, and things are kind of like moving across according to the plan, and you are enjoying it. For some of you, things would be moving according to the plan. You guys are following your plan, but you're not really enjoying it. So this can be a factor, right? And then some of you are like ending your degree program, right? And then you guys are doing a degree program. You are happy with that area of expertise, right? And some of you all are doing a degree program that you guys are not really happy with that whatever that you're doing, and you're planning on kind of like changing uh, uh, whatever the career direction that you are trying to take, right? So we can have all these kinds of individuals when we really come to think of it, right? So that situation is very normal, right? So just like I mentioned, we don't always have everything figured out, right? But as we move forward in this session, we will try to understand what can we do to kind of like come out of that confusion, right? So at the end of the day, right? So what we would actually want to do as of now, right? Depends from person to person. I'm going to ask another question, right? So if now you told me what is your next step, what are you going to do as the next, right? Now can you all tell me what is your end goal? What do you want to be, right? What will satisfy you? What is your ambition? What do you want to become one day? If I ask you that question, right? How many of you all want to be a CFO? How many of you all intending to become a CEO, owner of your own business, right? Work for a Fortune 500 company, right? Become a lecturer, become a professor, become a dean of a faculty, right? What is your ambition? What do you want to become one day? To end up in a higher management position and looking to forming an own company, that's really nice, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, one thing that you might find peace in is having your own company, not having to work for someone else, right? So that idea can be there for many of you. How about the others? What are your ambitions? What do you want to become, right? So these are the objectives that all of us have, right? So basically, what will happen is all of us will have these intentions, right? So we would want to kind of like have an idea, right, as to in X amount of years, this is where you want to go to. This is what I would want to become. That will always change, right? So every other year, according to circumstances, according to how you progress, that can change, right? But changing that is actually fine, right? So it's not a big a deal, right? So let's look at a few individuals, right? So anyone who has an idea as to who this person is, anyone has an idea as to who this person is? Any idea as to who this person is? If you all can tell me who this person is, who is this person? Any idea as to who this person is? Yes. So this person is Richard Branson. So his direction has been in an entrepreneurial pathway, right? And as an individual, right? So he did not have everything figured out at the start as well, right? So as a person, he started a magazine at 16, right? So eventually formed a working group of companies, and he's a multi-billion-dollar individual who has his own island in Fiji, right? So this is one person who has kind of like demonstrated that you don't really always have to have everything figured out at the start, right? You can just move forward, and as you move forward, you can just figure things out all by yourself, right? So that's Richard Branson for you. Any ideas to who this person is? Any ideas to who this is? Any ideas who this person is? Who is she? Oprah Winfrey, right? A well-known TV presenter, right? Global recognized, right? So he's an individual who also, right, did not have everything figured out at the start, right? Growing up, right? So challenging family situation, right? Poverty, all of these things actually affect her back, right? But actually transition from like a very difficult youth into becoming one of the world-known items, right? So even the individuals, she has no clue. I'm pretty sure that if we ask Oprah, she has no clue as to who we are, right? But we talk about this individual, right? So he's a world-renowned individual. But did she have everything planned out? Did she have everything figured out at the start? Not so much the case, right? So basically, this is a person who kind of like showcased to us that one thing that we require, right? So to go from where she was to where she is right now is just a bit of resilience and determination, right? And making sure that you don't really stop at the obstacles, right? So there can be roadblocks, right? You should not be stopping at these roadblocks, right? One final person, right? I guess he's not a very known person. If you know his name, you can tell me in the chat box. Who is this person? The idea is who this person is. Right? Steve Jobs, right? So co-founded Apple, right? So the brainchild of of his tech innovations, right? So as an individual, he came up with an idea for one of the most innovative companies and one of the most highest valued companies as of now, right? And known to be an individual who has contributed so much into the tech sphere, right? And is known as a person who has made a lasting impression in the tech industry. Even right now, as people who are in the tech industry, we kind of like follow his footsteps, right? He himself did not have like a very easy pathway, right? So he did not have any kind of like a formal education per se, right? But you guys, I mean, very different from you guys, right? But still, right? What actually happened was that although there was no straight path, right? So he kind of like made it, right? So these are few individuals that kind of like focuses on the fact that at the start of this journey, right? One thing that you need to have at the point of this transition, at the point of this change that you're going to make from into a student into a working professional is the fact that you have the attitude, you have the determination, and you have the perseverance to tell yourself that you can do it, right? You set your ambition, you identify where you want to go, and then you go into a phase where you follow through, and then you face the challenges, and then you move through them, right? That's the only way that you are able to get through those dreams that you're thinking of for yourself, right? So these examples actually proves us the right. So while doing that, right? So let's just try to understand, right? So now all of you guys are undergraduates, right? And then recent graduates, right? So fresh graduates, if we call it, right? So this is the audience that we have here today. And so these are the individuals that we have as a majority of people here today, right? So let's try to just understand the formal education structure. Right? So what you guys are following right now, right? Just for us to get an idea as to what you guys are doing right now. Okay. So what are formal education structure, right? So if at all, if any one of you have not been really familiar with this one, this is what the UK education structure would look like. Right? So you guys have different levels. You guys have different levels. Right? So there's a formal education pathway, right? Qualification pathway, and then on the right hand side you have a vocational pathway, right? So you guys are as graduates as well as undergraduates are in this path. And just for your knowledge, this is the UK structure. And this is the UK structure, right? What you guys have here in Sri Lanka in state universities is also somewhat similar, not the exact thing, but somewhat similar, right? This is the level-based structure, right? So as of now, right? So you guys have either are doing the level 6, right, which is a bachelor's degree, or you guys are intending to finish off, you guys have finished off the level, right? So if at all, if any one of you are thinking of getting a UK qualification, a UK education, what you guys will be doing, what you guys will be left with is your level 7 and your level 8, right? So that is your master's degree and your doctorate, right? So if you see this, you can understand, right? So in the structure, in the hierarchy of education, you guys have come a very, very long way, right? That's the whole point of this slide, right? Just to figure out the fact that you guys have come a very long way. You have done the right thing, right? You have followed through the right thing, and then you have achieved something that many individuals should have not, right? So in addition to these formal structures, you have informal education structures as well, right? So some of you all may have taken these online resources, right? Social media content. Some of you all might have done internships. Some of you all might be attending these seminars, webinars, and things like that to get different types of input from different resource individuals, right? So these are formal ways of learning in addition to what you guys learn in campus, right? And these are some of the ways that you learn, right? So this might be a little contradicting to what you guys are doing, right? So basically, this is what we call the learning pyramid, so the effective ways of learning, right? So if you guys are actually following, right, a certain way that you tend to study, right? So this will actually, if you haven't seen this before, this is actually something that will be helpful if you are still an undergraduate, right? So this is what you call the learning pyramid. This actually tells us the effectiveness of different types of learning, right? So as you can see here, these are the average student retention rates when it comes to the new content that we learn through these methods, Like you have reading, audio-visual, demonstration, discussion, practice, and teaching others. Right? So according to this structure, you can see, right, just reading something is one of the most least effective methods that you can follow, right? And then in this pyramid itself, you can see what are the most productive methods that you can follow, right? Things such as the discussion, practice, and what is the most effective one, which is teaching others, right? So this, if you haven't seen this before, right? So this is coming out of research itself, right? So this is something that you can follow, right? In order to be effective in your learning process, right? And when you look at the current strength, right? Something that we see is that compared to the one-off assessment that we have had some time back, we tend to have these continuous assessments and no exam, right? And things such as experiential learning. So rather than you doing exams, you tend to get activities, right? So there's a purpose as to what this is, right? So now maybe more examination, you have to do a different kind of an assessment rather than just holding exams,
Right?
right?
Okay. You
Which
have the
will
keys. It seems.
help
They are coming.
organizations,
They are coming.
which will help individuals to figure out and define new ways of evaluating people, right? What you call experiential learning. You learn by experience, right? And then you have business incubation. So in certain universities, you have incubator programs where if you have come up with a certain business idea, the university itself will provide you with the resources to come up with they will fund you and they will provide you with expertise to start your business, right? These are things that you kind of like increasingly starting to see, right? Not too sure about Sri Lankan universities, but if you go into countries like Australia, UK, you tend to see this quite a lot, right? And then practicing what you learn. So you learn not just to kind of like write exams and to pass exams and to get a grade, but you tend to learn something for you to practice, right? So if you look into universities such as Stanford University, and if you look into universities such as Harvard University, Cambridge University, Oxford University, you get like businesses who are working with the universities itself, right? So if you're an undergraduate of some of the Sri Lankan universities as well, you may have seen this, right? So some of these companies' research actually happens within the university itself. Right? So while you learn, you tend to practice all that during your degree program itself. Right? So these are the present trends in education, right? So one thing that you can do as undergraduates or fresh graduates is that you need to get yourself involved with all of these things whenever an opportunity provides you so that you can work on your repertoire, right? So basically, why would you actually have a degree, right? What's the main reason, right? You can actually go for the next promotion. That's one idea that you guys might have, right? Climb the corporate ladder fast, right? And the higher your qualification, obviously, higher the pay that you get, right? Higher the pay that you can negotiate, right? Probably the one without the master's might be getting less paid compared to someone who is with a master's degree, right? And also the acceptability and validation. So this is also one of the factors, right? And in addition to that, right, so the growth in life, right? So this is an unmissable factor. I mean, sometimes something that we tend to not notice is that when we kind of like have a qualification, is it only applicable for my education qualification? I mean, is only my work, right? Not the case. I mean, it is basically relevant for your life as well. So life is all about growth, right? The human psychology is as such, right? So where you experience growth, more growth that you experience, more happiness that you will feel in life, right? This is a psychologically proven fact, right? So this is a psychologically proven fact where if you are a person who would always look for extensive growth, look for progressive growth, right? So you will feel more happier, you will feel more satisfied, and you will be a person who will be more fulfilled with life rather than compared with a person who is stuck in one thing, right? So obtaining an education qualification will provide you with that. I mean, certainly did for me, right? So pretty much that would be common for at least most of you, right? So this is what you guys already know, right? So we just went through quickly about a snapshot of what is formal education, why do you do it, and so what's the whole purpose of doing it, right? Now to the real content of this session, right? Now you guys are already there. Like you guys are doing, you guys are undergraduate, or you guys are fresh graduates who are now trying to perfect on your career. Right? Now trying to climb up the corporate ladder as fast as possible. Right? Now the question is, what do I need to do to prepare myself for the next phase in life? Right? What are my steps? What can I do? Right? So what are my options? How do I prepare myself? Right? These are the questions that many of you are having, right? Okay. So let's start this discussion in this answer, right? So one thing that most of the fresh graduates, right, most of the individuals, they what they tend to miss is what you see on screen, right? So one thing that as a student, as an individual who has finished off your degree program like very recently, one thing that we kind of like tend to miss is doing an own reflection and trying to understand what are my skills, not bachelor of something that I have achieved, or bachelor of science, or bachelor of arts, or whatnot that you have achieved, right? Or you have gotten this kind of an achievement in my degree program. This is what I've done, and all that, right? So which is always important. I mean, without that, that's the base. Without that, you can't progress anywhere. Okay, so you need to have that for sure. But one thing that we tend to miss is that reflecting on what are my skills, right? What can I do? What am I good at? And what are my interests? And what are my values? Right? And what are my strengths? Right? Skills in the sense, right? As a person, can I approach a certain set of people? Can I talk really well? Am I afraid to connect with someone and talk? Right? This is something that I really don't want to do. Right? Or am I a person who can kind of like sit down on a place and kind of like work on a computer for about maybe 2, 3 hours straight? Am I a person like that, or am I not a person? Right? Or when it comes to a certain area, am I really passionate about numbers? Am I really passionate about math? I mean, I have the result. I have a first class in Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. But I mean, if I have to do this for the rest of my life, can I do it? Right? So this is the reflection that many individuals really fail to notice at a certain stage. Right? So in this stage, basically what happens is, right? So if you just go with the flow, somewhere down the line, right? So maybe 5, 10 years down the line, this is what kinds of like create a lot of workplace stress, right? Dissatisfaction of life, right? Sometimes even if you are really good, even if you can perform in the optimum manner, you're not really passionate about the things that you do. Right? Sometimes you just wake up one morning and then you are not very, I mean, passionate to go to work, right? These are the things that actually creates this problem, right? You not understanding what are your skills, what are your interests, right? What values do you stand for, and what are your strengths, right? If you miss this, right, it will be very difficult for you, not at the start. Probably at the start you follow through, but somewhere down the line, you might not actually be the happiest person in the world. Okay? So what can you do in order to do this, right? So one thing is doing this reflection, right? And then another thing is that exploring these various industries and job sectors to understand the demand, growth, and the risk, right? So basically, this is where the relevance comes into play, right? And you have to research specific occupations to align with your skills and interests, right? So one thing that you have to do at this stage is that don't just look at just one role, right? So if your degree program has taught you to become a CFO, if your degree program has taught you to become a CMO, right? It's really great that you can research around this area, right? It's really great if you can kind of like explore what a CMO has to do, what a CFO has to do, but make it a point that you explore some other pathways as well, right? So just get to know, talk to people, right? See what they're doing, right? What does a statistician do? What does an insurance salesman do, right? What does a computer engineer do, right? What does a product manager do, right? Explore these avenues. And most importantly, have an idea as to where the highest amount of demand is there, right? Not right now, right? But in the future. Okay. And then this will give you an idea as to what kind of a path that you would want to take, right? But obviously, one thing that I'm going to tell you right now itself is that if you look at different individuals and if you look at different career paths of various different individuals, right? So your career path, I mean, 10, 15 years back, if you look at your parents' generation or if you look at certain individuals, right? The career paths has always been linear, right? So people have been doing the same thing for maybe 25, 30, 40 odd years, right? Is it the same right now? Little questionable, right? So things are different right now, right? So if you think that that I mean exploring, right, and you have to always stick to one thing, right? So with the world, with where the world is going right now, might not always be the right approach that you would want to take, right? You'd always want to be in that exploring mindset, right? And then even though you have identified, okay, I'm going to become a CFO right now, right? Somewhere down the line, 5 years down the line, things could change, right? The direction could actually change, right? And you can see enough and more individuals who has gone through that phase and still doing really well, right? So just think about it at this moment, right? Evaluate your circumstances at this moment and for a foreseeable amount of future. That obviously you would not be the smartest person in the room if you're trying to predict everything and anything that is happening in 15, 20, 25 odd years, right? So that's too far. Right? So things are changing too far, right? Think about the circumstances which are relevant in the immediate future and then plan for that, right? You always need to make sure that you have a plan at this given moment, right? That's what you need to ensure. The future is up to the future, right? And then identify that and then plan for it, right? Identify the skills required for that chosen path, right? And most importantly, if you have the opportunity, try to connect with individuals of that desired field, right? And then when you do the reflection, right, one thing that will help you is identifying what is your personality, right? This might be something that some of you all may have heard about, might be something that some of you all may not have heard about, right? So this research is coming from Myers and Briggs, right? So we call it Myers and Briggs personality, right? So this is something that organizations look at, right? Businesses look at, right? So top organizations actually look at your personality before they hire you. Right? So these are something that I personally have gone through when I have been hired by multinationals, right? And this is something that will be really helpful for you as well to understand what kind of a career path that you would want to see, right? Raise your hand. How many of you all have heard about this concept? personality types. How many of y'all have heard about this? How many of y'all have heard about this personality type? Right, we got one person, two people, right? That's pretty great, right? So one thing that you can actually do is, right? So I'll tell you why as well. So based on the personality, right? So your personality will define how you think, right? And how you feel. Most importantly, how you feel, okay? And your type of behavior, right? So there are 16 different personality types that are actually defined, right? You can just search this, you can just Google this, and you can just find out. And you can find out a test, right? Which you can use. It's a set of questionnaire, right? You will not be required to answer mathematical questions or anything like that. It's a questionnaire which will take about maybe 5-6 minutes for you to fill, right? And once you fill all these questionnaires, they will tell you what kind of personality that you have, right? So according to this research, it defines people under 16 different personalities, right? If you can find your personality, then you can understand what kind of job roles will be mostly suitable for you, right? Once you have identified your personality, then you can identify what kind of a job role is most suitable for you, right? So I have put down some examples over here, right? So you have INFJ, ENFP, INTJ, like that. Then this will actually give you an idea, right? So this will give you an indication, right? Just an indication, right? So this is not a life-defining tool, right? This will just help you to identify something, right? Identify a career path that you would truly enjoy and truly will be fulfilled doing, right? This is one tool that you can. Once you have identified what you would want to do, one thing that you need to identify is that for that career path, what are the steps that I have to pull, right? It would be really ideal if you have if you can actually draw this and keep a mental picture, right? So at a certain given moment, like I mentioned, you might have a certain ambition. Probably you want to become a CFO, you want to become a CMO, whoever you want to become, right? So that is your end goal. That is where you want to get to, right? So you have to, step by step, you have to link, you have to identify, right? What, where do you want to start, right? Is it an internship or can I get an associate role, right? Based on different roles, this path is different, right? So I have, as an example, I have shown you a marketing career path, right? So for you to become a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, what is the path that you want to take, right? Sometimes some of us might not need to start with an intern position, right? Some of the individuals are there who straight away start with a manager position, right? I, as an individual, I started off with an internship, right? And then I made my way into the senior level, right? So like that, you can map it out. Then this will give you a clear picture as to where you want to start, what steps do you want to follow through next up to get to where you want to get to. This will be a very important mental picture that you can draw, right? So once you have identified what you want to do, right? So I hope I gave you enough tools in order to identify that, right? Another important thing that you have to do is building up a professional network, right? Building up a professional network. Now, if you look at this, right? So if you look at this one, this is something that really goes unnoticed. People don't really understand the value of networking, right? So as undergraduates, one thing that you really see is that you tend to kind of like get a lot of opportunities inside the college, inside the university for you to network itself. But students don't really see that because the reason why you see them as just extracurricular activities, right? So that's one of the things that I myself kind of like tell a lot of undergraduates. Okay, your academics are really important, right? But one thing that you really need to work on is to make sure that you cherish the opportunities that you get to network, right? That you get to talk to people, right? So basically over here, right? So networking provides access to information and job opportunities that may not be publicly available, right? So one thing that I have to tell you, right? So being in the industry for this long, right? So the most important role, most critical job inside the organization are the ones which are not publicly available, right? So I'm going to tell you again, right? So the most critical roles that you see in the industry are the ones which are not advertised, right? How often that you see like a very critical role like a CEO or maybe like a CMO, right? Being advertised all the time, right? There are cases where it is advertised, but do you really see that? Very rarely, right? But still, there are people who are fulfilling those positions. So now you see where it is coming from, right? So that's the power of networking, right? So from the younger age, from while you're being an undergraduate, it's always important to ensure that you build up a very strong network, right? And how you can do this, right? So we'll talk about it later on in the next slide, right? So over here, right, it is very important that you build up this network from the get-go itself, right? So if you can build this up while you're an undergraduate, you can actually go a very long way. Let me give you a small example as well, right? This actually happened to a friend of mine, right? So in one of the previous organizations that I was working for, right? So there was this CSO, Chief Strategy Officer, who was actually looking for a very intellectual role, right? To work with him, right? So this role has been advertised, but obviously, right? So the company has not been able to kind of like fulfill the right person. But guess what happens, right? So there was this profiles which I managed to send it across to this individual, right? And instantly, what this high-ranking person told me in that company is that, oh, I remember this. I remember this guy because I have worked with this individual during at a university event, right? And this guy was actually heading an event, right? So apparently, this high-ranking individual has been in a judge panel of a competition, and he can remember this person, right? And he remembers this person as a person who has the kind of capability to carry out the job role, right? That's the most important thing. Get noticed, right? Work with this individual. I'm pretty sure that in your universities you have enough and of more opportunities to do this, right? So you have events going on, you have like 1,001 different clubs and societies which are there in universities. Get involved, right? It is as important as having a perfect record in your academic, right? So if you don't really have this network, right, you're just left with a CV and you're just left with, right, somebody kind of like believing whatever that you have in the CV, right? But if you have network, you have gotten yourself noticed, right? So as an example, I mean, I'll tell you my personal experience, right? So I, as an individual, attend a lot of judge panels across different universities, right? So I have personally hired individuals who have kind of like presented in different occasions, right? So I can't stress the importance here, right? How can you do this, right? So that's the question, right? So over here, right? So when it comes to the network, right? So one thing that you can actually do is, right, to actively participate in whatever the industry-related events, right, conferences and seminars that you can get involved in, right? So I'm pretty sure that there are enough and more opportunities that are available for you in university, right? This can be in the form of different events, and this can be in the form of different conferences, right? So participate in this stuff and make sure that you get yourself noticed. That's something that you can do, right? So, and also, right, so if you don't have that opportunity to do so, one thing that you can actually do is, right, so you can connect, right? So you can connect with different platforms that is already open for, right? So this is completely free, right? It doesn't take much, right? So you can connect with anyone globally, right, through this platform. Right. So one thing that we used to do when we were, when we were on tours on different kind of like regions, is that we tend to connect with individuals in those regions, right, using LinkedIn, right? So having a proper network, starting to build up on that LinkedIn network while you guys are still at university will actually help you guys, right? So how can you do that, right? So basically, first thing is create the network, right? So create the account, right? That's number one, right? And always kind of like be active, right? Connect with individuals who you consider as ideal, right? And then just look at how they maintain their profile and then kind of like build up a conversation with them if possible, right? And get yourself noticed. Right? So that's something that you can do, right? So how do you leverage this online platform, right? So how can you maintain this profile? So there are various ways that you can do this, right? So basically one thing that you can do is, right? One question that you might have is that, okay, so I'm going to make a profile, but what am I going to post? I don't have much to post, right? So what you can do is you can start with whatever that you have. This can be your academic achievements, your skills, or probably talk about your career goals, right? So at least one, right? And then talk about all the conferences that you organize and talk about, I mean, have a perfect record of your education background, right? Include your degree program and include any institutions where you're connected with, right? Add your graduation date, right? And then talk about any volunteering projects that you have worked with, right? So you have enough and more opportunities where you can interact with global organizations while you're still in uni, right? So you can talk about that. You can talk about all these projects that you have done for them, right? So that actually goes a long way, right? So and then the other thing is that list your skill. So what can you do? Are you good at speaking? Are you good at, you're not really afraid to kind of like uh, go on a stage and present something, right? And also another thing that you can do is you have enough and more resources inside uni itself, right? So you have the professors, your classmates, colleagues. Some of your colleagues can be entrepreneurs, right? And then these guys can actually add you a lot of value. So if you have worked with these individuals, one thing that you can do is you can kind of like ask them for endorsement. Right? That's something that you can do, right? And then along with that, you can connect with professionals in the industry, right? That you would want to get to, right? So this can be the CTOs, the CFOs, the CMOs, the top level individuals. Literally everyone's there on LinkedIn, right? You don't have to handpick anyone. They're just there, right? You can find them very easily. It just takes a few seconds to search, right? So do that, right? And then look out for alumni from your university as well. As an individual, I like people who are connecting from my university, which I have attended, right? So we would like to interact, right? So take that opportunity and go for it, right? Right. So these are things that you can actually do when you are networking, right? So to effectively network and build up something for yourself. Okay. So now, um, what are the trends, right? Where is this going right now? Okay, that's an important idea that you have to have, right? So one thing that I mentioned earlier on is that you should not be planning for the present. If you're planning for right now, and if you're kind of like building up your skill set for now, then once you have acquired your skill set, whatever that skill set, whatever that knowledge that you have acquired will be irrelevant, right? There's nothing that you can do with it. Right? So what you need to look at is according to the area of expertise that you have selected, you need to identify, right, in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, what will become relevant, right? So you can figure out, right? You can figure this one out, right? Through these credible research papers, you can watch Gartner, you can kind of like check out content on World Economic Forums, right? And then you can identify what are the insights and what are the trends that you see, right, in your area of expertise, right? So I'll just take you to the most important, right? So this is actually coming from the World Economic Forum, right? So very credible research, right? If you look at the kind of skills that will be required, right, for you in the future, right? These are the top 10 skills. These are top 10 skills that you want to have right now. Okay. So can you see anything related to things such as kind of like preparing your statement of financial position or programming in Java, or maybe writing SQL queries, or maybe developing a marketing plan? Do you see any of that here? I don't see any of that here, at least in the top 10, right? So what do you really have to work on, right? So the things such as thinking, creative thinking, analytical thinking, right? Resilience meaning the same thing that we spoke of at the start of this session, right? Making sure that you follow through even though things are difficult, right? Motivation and self-awareness, right? So there's nobody who will come and motivate you, right? So it will be only you who will be there, right? So you have to motivate yourself, right? Curiosity, right? Technological literacy, right? So as we go forward, right? So we are in the fourth industrial revolution, right? So in this industrial revolution, it's mostly about the AI, right? Artificial intelligence. How do you use those technologies in your day-to-day use, right? Something that we tend to see is that, I mean, people blame people for using ChatGPT, but what you need to think about is that, okay, so you should not let that one go. You should actually learn how to use it in whatever that you do, right? How to use this different tech for your advantage, right? That's the literacy that you need to have, right? So, and then empathy, which has become a very, very specific requirement, right? So you need to empathize with individual. You have to understand what each other think, right? And then the kind of leadership, right? You need to be able to lead, right? So these kinds of things you can develop while being in the university itself by participating in these things such as these extracurricular activities. Right? Something that people tend to miss is that, okay, so word called extracurricular, right? Which actually kind of like deviates you from this area. So basically, leadership skills you can develop by participating in these, right? And then taking up a sport, right? Leading an event, organizing an event. So these are the things that you tend to miss. These are things that you kind of like tend to not notice that, right? But unknowingly, by participating in these stuff, you will be developing certain stuff that you don't really realize for yourself. That is it, right? And then these are the things that recruiters kind of like see in fresh graduates, right? So, okay, degree program, tick, that's just a tick in the box, right? So, how many marks that you have gotten for this module, how many marks that he has gotten for this module, has he gotten an A for this one and all that, that is not something that people would do. But what they would be interested is that what have you done during the uni? Have you only studied? Or have you kind of like participated in any sports? Have you gotten any skills of going into an audience and speaking, doing comparing stuff, right? So has this person done this stuff? Right? This is what the recruiter could be doing, right? So make sure to kind of like focus on that. And most importantly, right? So start building your personal brand, right? So start building a brand for yourself at a very early stage, right? So look at these individuals, right? So you have, I mean, three individuals. I hope that, right? So most of them know them, right? So basically, if you look at these individuals does not really require a second introduction. Like, this is what you call the personal brand. You yourself can start developing this one, right, at a very early stage. How can you do it, right? The way you walk, your body language, the way you talk to each other, your language, your capability of the language, how you kind of like handle your language, how you talk to others, right? The way you dress, the way you present yourself, right? Your capabilities, your skills, everything will actually define your personal brand. It's something that you can do. It's something that you can. Okay. Now, most importantly, right? One thing that you have to kind of like understand, right? So when you go into the work life, right, something that you will always come into terms with is this thing called the trust, right? You will always have trust. Right? There won't be a role as long as you're performing in like a high performing um, a role where you are focused on your attention is highly required, right? To stress and the kind of expectations is always something that will be there, right? So you as a person, you need to identify how to balance it, right? The pressures that comes along with the work, right? How can you do it, right? What can you do, right? How can you push yourself, right? And then while you do it, how can you keep that balance? The balance is the most important thing. And so you have the life and then you have the work. What you have to do is you have to stay on top of it, not let it consume you. So how can you do it? That's the question, right? So one thing that we always try to do is we tend to kind of like work all the time. That's something that I tend to do as well. But later on, I learned it the hard way that this is not the right way. Right? You should not always be working. You should have a balance of working. Right? You need to take your break. Right? If you don't take your breaks, what will happen is even if you are working for 24 hours straight, right, you will not be productive. Sometimes you will be able to achieve the same amount of workload in 10 hours if you focus well and if you take that 14 hours to rest yourself, right? And another thing that you have to do is you have to be organized, right? You have to plan, right? Planning meaning 50% of the work is actually done, right? And also something that will give you freedom is sticking to a consistent routine, right? Making sure that you be consistent. You have a specific time that you wake up, you have a specific time that you go to bed, right? These are simple things, right? Which will actually help you to manage this, right? And then always make sure that you always reflect on yourself. You look at, okay, so what makes me really happy, right? Is there something at work which is not really allowing me to sleep well, right? So look at these kinds of things. So which will actually help you to build up that plan, right? And then most importantly, right? This is not something that everybody would be able to get, right? But this is something that will be helpful for most of you, right? If possible, try to connect with a mentor, right? Somebody who has done something that you want to do, right? There are all kinds of mentors. Right? There can be individuals who are telling you things who actually do not practice it themselves, right? There are individuals like that. Okay? So you have to be very careful. Right? So always select a mentor, always select a person whom you are looking up to, right? My advice to you is that, right? Always look up to someone who has actually done something that you would want to do, right? Then when you talk to that person, you will be able to know, right? You will be able to get to know, respectively, what you have to do, right? What do you have to do, right? So having a mentor is actually a luxury, but is something that will help you go a very long way, right? So how do you find it? You can actually while you're at uni, you can talk to individuals to find one. You can talk to your lecturers to find one, right? Or else you can connect with individuals on LinkedIn or any other social media platform. Or you can connect with somebody whom you will be working at an event, right? An invitee, a guest speaker, any, right? That's how you can. All right. Great. So one final thing to finish things off, right? One final thing that I want to just leave with you is that we cannot direct the way, right, in life, right? So whatever that is going to happen, we can't change it. I mean, we can't kind of like adjust whatever that is going to happen. But what we can do is we can adjust how we are going to react to it, right? How are we going to kind of like respond to it? That's something that we can control, right? So don't worry about the things that you cannot control. Don't worry about the things that is out there in the industry. Don't worry about things that is just there, right? Always focus on what you can control, which is adjusting, right? So you as individuals, right? So you guys are starting things off right now, right? So and then you guys, some of you are undergraduate still finishing off your degree program, right? Some of you have just started work, right? Either way, what you guys have to do is you guys need to ensure you always be adaptable, be always be learning, and be always be listening to what you can kind of like empathize with yourself to adjust accordingly. And at the end of the day, be satisfied with whatever that you're doing. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining for today's session. I really hope that you got something out of this. Right. So we discussed various different stuff. You can always connect with me. Right. So if you do want to, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can just drop me a message. Right. If you do want to, have a chat. Right. And don't forget to kind of like drop a message and tell me if this session actually helped you guys as well, so that whenever we are doing this for different audiences, we can add something that you found really helpful and you think that there needs to be something uh, added to these programs going forward. Thank you very much, everyone. I would hand over the controls back to Kensley.
Thank you, Mr. Chamaka. You painted a clear picture of what to expect and how to mold one's career path. You touched on all the important topics, such as the importance of networking and building the right connection, putting oneself out there, exploring all the avenues that they might have, and also most importantly, looking within to identify one's personality traits and characteristics that would help them mold the said path. And also, you spoke about the future trends, the importance of familiarizing oneself with the future trends and all of that. So I don't think you missed anything out. It was information fact session, and I hope that our participants here today had a lot of takeaways. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. And if any of you all missed, to join into the session, no worries. You can log in. Check out our YouTube page, and it will be uploaded. So before signing off, I'd like to wish everyone the season's greetings. Very happy Christmas and Happy New Year.